Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Real 1% podcast. Today we have Chip Lewis. He's a Navy, still in the Navy, been in there for quite some time now. Just said he hit his 20-year mark, and you're not going to want to miss this episode. He's going to share how he went from having zero properties to now managing and operating over 20 rentals of different sorts. So without further ado, Chip, how you doing today? Appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. So when was the first time that you thought about getting into real estate? Was it something that you wanted to do from a young age, or it's something that came about while you serving in the Navy?
Wasn't something really at a young age. So I went to college for finance. So I did have a couple real estate courses then. So I kind of got introduced to real estate a little bit and a lot of the kind of the concepts. And then, with a finance background, of course, like that kind of plays well with, just understanding how, the finance component and kind of evaluating investments. So I guess that was kind of my introduction in college, but I just didn't have like knowing my family really had rental properties. So I didn't really kind of understand the investment and I didn't really have any connections. But I was more focused on like kind of the stock market investing, did a lot of security analysis in school and things like that. So when I got out of college, I actually worked for Mass Mutual for about a year. And then, as a financial advisor. So I had my Series 6, 63. So we got some experience there kind of in, insurance and finance, and then kind of reevaluate my life and want to do something different. Got beat up in that business for about a year after college. And it was a really, really good learning experience. But so it was up until probably all of my 20s, I was just kind of, saving, investing, heavily, mostly in the stock market. And then, eventually just kind of saw real estate as a way to kind of diversify out of the stock market some and kind of generate some, passive income, right? Just to kind of, one for diversification, just something, a more reliable income stream, like, kind of prepare me for, the eventual exit from the military, which I wasn't sure if it was going to be, my next tour or, if I was going to stay into retirement.
What made you want to join the Navy in the first place?
I mean, so both of my grandfathers served in the Navy. One was a gunner on the Liberty ship in World War II. The other was a storekeeper in Korea, both in the Pacific. So there was definitely the family legacy, but I was just kind of looking, I felt like this is like 2004, a lot of stuff going on. Just didn't really, I don't know, I just wanted something more meaningful in my life, and looked at different branches, but mainly because of my family legacy, I looked towards the Navy. So.
Okay. And then you went to the Navy, and then first job you had out of that, you got put on a submarine?
Yeah, so actually, like, I enlisted in the Navy with a college degree. So there's actually quite a few people who do that, but it was, less common back then. But I started out in engineering in college. I had a little bit too much fun and probably drank too much in college. So my grades weren't the best. And at that time, the Navy and the Air Force were not hurting for people. So I wasn't as competitive. So I just decided to kind of enlist, and I'll eventually get commissioned, which I did, eventually. But yeah, so I went into the submarine community, submarine electronics, computer field. So I went to, boot camp. I went to submarine school, A school in Groton, Connecticut. So after about a little over a year of training, I got orders to my first submarine, which was out of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii.
How was it being on a submarine? Some say it's kind of like if you're claustrophobic, it's not for you, but what was your experience?
Oh, it's just like, it's just the vacation. It's just like being on a cruise ship. No, not really. It's just, it's something we kind of, you kind of, you're screened for it, you train for it for about a year. So for me, it was just, okay, this is what I'm doing, right? I signed a contract. Yeah, it is pretty tight quarters, especially I was on a fast stack submarine. So tight quarters, but it's a really tight knit crew. I mean, you have, 120, 130, people on a boat. Back then it was all guys, and you just, everybody, your life depends on each other, and you become, very close. And so, a lot of it honestly is just kind of arduous and boring, especially, long missions and being, submerged for, sometimes months at a time. But, looking back, you kind of remember like the people and the good times and the bonds you built, right? Which is like, I think, super common with, most things in the military, right? And that's kind of what we,
Yeah.
that's kind of what we remember is kind of like the best part of it, right? So
absolutely.
you kind of forget about the bad times a little bit.
Yeah, try to. I mean, good times usually outweigh the bad, hopefully, for most people. But the camaraderie is one thing that everyone does talk about. Leaving the military, what's one thing everyone misses? They always say, the fellowship, the camaraderie, the friendships, so that's definitely.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing. And that's kind of the struggle when we all kind of depart, right? So
True.
I'm still in the reserves, I'm still tied to it, but it's different than, it's different than, being on a crew of a submarine or, being in a platoon or something like that. So.
Absolutely. So you said that you learned a lot of good life lessons when you were going through like your time at Mass Mutual. Looking back on that, what were some of the lessons that you learned, and how were those able to propel you to, further growth in your career?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is like my first job out of college, and they're really eager to kind of hire young people out of college because they don't really have to pay them much money. It's mostly commission based. Yeah, it's a total sales job. I was kind of a little oversold kind of on the opportunity, and thought I was going to kind of get, it's a great organization, but, it's kind of, I had sales manager and things like that, but a lot of it's just all on you. It's kind of sink or swim. So, I mean, I think it was just kind of a hard lesson that, you got to put whatever you do, you got to put, it's all on you. Ultimately, your success relies on your efforts, and you got to own it. And then you need help. Like, you need help from other people, whatever it is you've done. I think one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my life is just thinking I can do everything myself and not kind of reaching out, asking for help. And I think that's better about it now. I'm still not where I should be. But, back then, I had some help, but I was also kind of stubborn and, thought I was like, I'm this super smart kid, and, maybe I was, but, but how am I going to get 50-year-old people that, make multiple six figures to kind of give me money as a kid that's 23 and looks like he's like 16. So, so that was a challenge, and it was just kind of learned a lot because it was I was just, in college you're a little on your own, but you still have a little bit of safety net being your parents. But going into that job totally kind of on my own and not a guaranteed salary was a huge kind of it was a very just transformative period of my life. And it wasn't always tough when I was going through it, but now I look at it as kind of probably one of the most valuable periods of my life. So.
Okay, appreciate you sharing that. So what made you transfer into real estate? Like what kind of got you going? Did you see people when you're in like active duty in the Navy out there in Hawaii start doing like, buying houses, flipping houses? What was your introduction into the real estate world?
Yeah, so initially I got into it as, I think we kind of talked about, as an investor. So I actually bought my first investment property before I bought my first primary residence, which is usually, almost always the other way around. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to stay in Hawaii for my next tour. So, I was looking for that diversification, bought a short-term rental. It's kind of before the Airbnb thing took off in Orange Beach, Alabama. So did that, not really with a good plan, and it ended up working out okay. And it was a good learning experience. But that was kind of my first foray. I was like, okay, this is okay. But if I can, build up, a passive income stream. This is a way to kind of exit the military and live in Hawaii. It's a very expensive place. So, even, they kind of live here. That's just another avenue to, support, the quality of lifestyle here, right? Passive income. And a lot of what I was doing is looking for investments on the mainland U.S. because all of the market here is, pretty dynamic, but it's more of an appreciation, market. So you're not going to get the cash flow that you're going to get in a lot of markets in the mainland U.S.
When you bought that short-term rental, were you thinking, that was something you were going to hold on to forever, or you just kind of rolled the dice and figured out, you'd pick that up and see how it went for a couple of years?
Yeah, it was not necessarily like a forever hold, but it was just, okay, I think this'll work. Let's just do it. Right. I didn't run like obviously I did, I'm a finance guy. So obviously I'm doing some math and things like that. And a little bit of analysis, but I didn't run all the calculators. Bigger pockets wasn't really a thing then. So it's a lot different now. There's just more resources of tools, calculators, online education. That's a lot of it's free, or even the masterminds and mentorships that are available now. And if I had those resources then, where would I be now? Who knows?
Right. You still definitely come up a lot. You've been doing it for over 10, around 10 years, I think, or maybe even investing longer. You've been doing the realtor thing for about 10 years. Yeah. And, do you think you got stuck in kind of analysis paralysis when you first started before you did that first deal, or you did?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just can, like I said, I was a background in finance. So it was always kind of worried about, hey, well, what if this doesn't work? But at a certain point, you just gotta take action, right? So, and generally action, especially with real estate, as long as things kind of pencil out and you kind of have a buffer to kind of cover the mortgage. In the long run, real estate can be, it's generally pretty forgiving, to investors, particularly as long as you have some, reserves and, cushion built up and good debt, right? So, have, not floating rate debt, something with, at least, 5-10 years kind of locked out, right? Where you can kind of weather, interest rate fluctuations like we've seen in the past couple of years.
What have you seen in Hawaii you've been there almost 20 years now. When you first started, what is the market showing you, and how bad has it gone up?
Oh yeah. It just keeps going up. We're very, I'm based out of Oahu, this is where all the military bases are. When I first came here, I was at E4. I wasn't really thinking about buying here. The prices were kind of, were crazy in my mind, and I didn't really understand the VA loan then, right? Even with somebody with finance background, I didn't really understand what my VA benefits were. I know that now, very well. But it's a high cost market, but it's appreciation. So you're not going to get cash flow on rentals. You can, especially if you've held it for a while. But then you probably have a lot of equity in the property. It's a pretty resilient market, and a lot of lending institutions consider us pretty safe a bet, because what you're buying here is you're buying land. Land is what appreciates, and we're in a very highly constrained market. So most of the island, there's just not much room to add extra housing. There's a couple of developments in central Oahu that they're kind of adding some units, but overall it's just going to be kind of a drop in the bucket. And then if you're in the more desirable, locations, either closer to downtown Hawaii, Kailua, things like that, there's almost nowhere to build, right? Other than maybe some ADU, infill or CPR things. So those communities just keep, even during the Great Recession, you saw it was just especially if it's a good area here, it was almost like a negligible, blip.
And what you're saying before we went on, you said maybe roughly around 5,000 square foot lots, roughly several $100,000, if not $1 million, depending on the land, and that would be for a total, pretty much demolished whatever's on the land, and then have to build a house.
I live in Kailua, and you can't buy a tear down here for under $1 million. It's a 5,000 square foot lot
That's crazy.
with a house you got to bulldoze. You're probably looking at right now $1 million, and then depending on what you want to build on it, right? It's
right.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at probably a build out for 500. Really, you want to probably do $750,000 to get something kind of that makes sense.
Yeah,
with those numbers. So it's a very tough. It's a very stable market, and it is attractive for a lot of reasons. But I've never done any flipping here just because one is I'm a licensed broker, and I know what I'm supposed to do, and I want to do it the right way. And it's very hard to do things here with permitting and things like that. It just takes a lot of time. Like a lot of kind of areas like you see on the West Coast, right? Just kind of the permitting timelines, take a long time. So
how much think I paid for this house in the background?
That looks like it's know where that is. That does look like it's in Hawaii. I'm not exactly sure where.
No, I did like a AI thing, real estate
nice.
in Hawaii. So
yeah,
but now I'm messing with you. Probably a couple million at least, right? If you had something like that, several million,
maybe tens.
Tens.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there's a couple of houses. I mean, there's a house. There's an estate. I think it's still for sale. I don't really look at it because I don't have any clients, but they're in that range. But I live in Kailua, so Kailua Beach. There's a estate there that's been for sale for about $50 million.
Jeez.
So not a lot of people that can afford that, but sometimes we just have people that tech people that just need a safe place to kind of park some money, right? So we have a lot of people from the West Coast that'll just it's hard to kind of the short-term rental market's really hard here because they've started kind of cracking down on that. And it's hard to get. You can't really get legal permits for stuff unless it's in a resort zoned area. But even then, people will that have a lot of money sometimes will just buy an estate here. It's just considered kind of a safe place to kind of park your money. So.
When you were E4, and how did you start learning about like what you're able to buy and purchase? When it came to real estate in Hawaii, who kind of turned you on to that? And then even the VA loan, you said you didn't really know much about it. How did you end up educating yourself on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I was at E4, I wasn't even looking. I mean, one is I didn't think I made that much money, but I mean, I was in the barracks, but I mean, I was actually making pretty good money once I didn't have a housing expense, and I was gone all the time, so I wasn't really thinking about buying. But it did allow me an opportunity to kind of save up a lot of money, put a lot of money, sock away in investments, and then you kind of re-enlist the bonuses. You're deployed, and you kind of saving that. Especially once I moved downtown, I was renting. So initially, what I did is kind of I didn't own a place, but it's kind of a rental house act where 3 guys in the same place, and we split. So we're saving our extra BAH, and then we deploy. We move out and save on that. So that really helped kind of set me up. And then I started looking at, like I said, I bought an investment property first, and then when I found out I was going to stay here, I was like, okay. Then at some point, I want to be here for good. So, I want to buy a place. So at that point, I'd kind of gotten a little bit more, I had, bought my own property and a little bit more interested in real estate. So I met my wife out here. She actually had a rental property in Colorado that was kind of accidental landlord situation. She bought after college and then moved out here, and the market was bad. So she just rented it out. So once we got married, we actually, decided, hey, we want to put down roots here and buy a house. And still wasn't super, aware of the VA loan, right? I was just kind of like, well, if you can put money down, why do the VA loan if you got to pay the funding fee? But then we actually got under contract. This is before I got my license. I actually got under contract on the house, and we actually offered 20% down because I was like, well, why would I do the VA loan? And then we actually ended up doing a VA loan on it because once we got under contract, we were having discussions with a lender. It's a very phenomenal lender. I still work with sometimes, but I didn't realize that the rates were so good, so much better, especially on higher priced properties, that it made sense. So we actually got the seller to agree to switch to a VA loan as long as we guaranteed the appraisal. So we did that. So we did put money down on the VA loan, but we put like 10% just to minimize the funding fee at the time. 5 to 20% we were prepared to with a conventional. But yeah, looking back, it's like, why did I do that? I should have just gone zero down. But I was kind of like, it was more risk averse. I was like, okay, well, I'm probably getting off active duty at some point. I'm gonna have this house in Hawaii. Like, I want to make sure like everything's gonna be good. But then yeah, after about a year, it's like, okay, like, yeah, this is not a big deal managing this mortgage payment. And I'm in the same house, and we've done the VA IRRRL a few times, so I'm one of those people with a 2.25 VA loan with a ton of equity. So
good for you, man. And it's nice to hear that you like actually ran into a lender that would, give you the knowledge to succeed and use a tool like the VA loan. Some people that don't even know anything about it, and there's others like the one that you use, and they know everything.
Yeah, it's just really, who you work with, super, super important. This as a real estate agent. And that's kind of why I got in the business. So I wasn't licensed when I bought my house. And I mean, I just kind of had a very underwhelming experience, with our real estate agent. It was like, hey, you don't really have to do anything here. We're going to put an offer on the first house we look at and don't really have to do much. And it's like we kind of did everything, and it just wasn't. I'm like, well, maybe that's something for me to get into, because I don't mind, the sales. I like talking to people, but I was really adverse to commission based on my experience out of college. But it's like, okay, like everybody needs a place to live. So, and there's an opportunity here that vets are just so in active duty, people are so underserved. So that really what spurred me to kind of get my license. Back then, it was about a year after we actually bought our house.
I think I fell upon similar times. I mean, I was out when I got out of the Army looking with a realtor, and they didn't know much about the VA thing. And long story short, I get like my eligibility back and what I was going to be eligible for to get the loan. It was like, it was like way under what we were looking at. And I was like, wow, man, it's like these people are the professionals. I mean, granted, I should have known better too, but you don't know what you don't know. And it's just like, right. That was kind of more of the fuel too, along other things of saying like, you know what, I could do this too. You go get and actually take care of people. I know like part of your mission and your goals is to like help people find their dream homes and kind of give them the concierge service that, service that everyone, deserves. Whether they're buying a house is probably going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, financial commitments that people are going to do in their lifetime, whether they do it one time or 10. But, having a good person on your side, you went through it, you didn't really have someone that met up to the standards you were looking for, and they still got paid at the end of the day. So, good for you to going out there and getting, your license. And then from that point on, it seems like you just leveled up and you kept going. I mean, you're doing property management, you're doing syndication, you're doing all these other things that, people just stick to in real estate, but you kind of went for the whole pot. Can you talk a little bit about how you kind of went from buying your house with your wife and then to just jumping into all these different avenues of real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think to touch on like how we both got into this business and what really motivates me is it's just serving people and helping them, right? It's like, obviously we want to make money, but at the end of the day, like, I just want to like, feel rewarded for what I do, for helping people through the process. And and just kind of giving them a service. And, as long as and that's really kind of been the key to my business. It's not been nearly as fast as, a lot of probably people's business, but what I've done, it's just consistency to kind of just get there and kind of do right by people, even though it might be a detriment to me in the short run. Make sure they kind of, getting the right property, they're taking care of, using the right people, and not just doing things that's going to get me a, commission check next month. But yeah, how I got into all this other investment stuff. So I started getting after I bought my house here, I ended up buying so we had, at that point, we had a house here, we had 2 rentals, and then I was looking for another rental here. So I ended up buying a single family home here. It was kind of set up as 2 units, like a non-conforming duplex with upstairs and downstairs. There was a large family that lived in it. I was going to list it for the guy. He just had some constraints as far as kind of like timing and moving, and wasn't really looking to buy in that area. He kind of like convinced me to, and I started looking at the numbers. I was like, oh, well, this actually will work, and will cash flow. It's hard to find a cash flow in real in Hawaii. It was in not as a good of area, but it was a good house. So I did that. 2016, I bought that place, and then I decided, hey, okay, got a couple properties, like let's just get more properties, cash flow. So the vacation rental I had, just very seasonal on the Gulf Coast. So it's great during the summer. You just, hopefully in the winter, you get a snowbird in there, and you're breaking even, or even just slightly negative to cover some of your costs. So it's like, I need to do something that I started kind of like Bigger Pockets was around then, started kind of learning more about that, but maybe like multifamily is the answer. So I ended up doing a 1031 that property into kind of a small multifamily portfolio in North Alabama. I was really on the contract for 22 units in that deal. It's 4 single family homes, 6plex, 3 4plexes. So, but it was a very difficult transaction. Trading one property for like 22. We had an issue with the appraisal, and we renegotiated, and then so kicked out the single family, but then we have to go with a different lender. So I basically closed on 18 units of the small multifamily 2 weeks before my 1031, timeline. I'm in Hawaii, like at this point, I think we had our first kid, or it was on the way. And it's like, this is just a lot. And I got off active duty. I was in the reserves, and I was working a DoD job and doing real estate on the side. It was like there's got to be a way to do this like more passively. And so while I was under contract for those units, I met a guy that was doing some syndications in the area. I was like, oh, I'll have some extra capital because we restructured this deal. So started doing that and kind of got more educated. Now I had a contact with the syndication space. So really kind of drank that Kool-Aid and went really heavy in the real estate syndications, mostly multifamily, larger and small to large multifamily stuff. And since I've kind of gotten into some mobile home park investing, some self-storage funds, things like that, but really saw syndications as a way to kind of, with everything else I had going on in my life and being based in Hawaii, is really to kind of scale passively. So I went really kind of heavy in that, and then actually sold off a couple of these rentals, and then didn't want to do a 1031 exchange. So I did the lazy 1031 exchange because I'm getting all these losses from these syndications, especially when we had 100% bonus depreciation. So basically I could wash the capital gains and depreciation recapture on those deals and just deploy it in a syndication. And yeah, so I was really kind of growing that, and I'm still heavily invested in syndications. I think I had like 26K on my taxes last year, but things kind of got tough in the last couple of years, especially in the commercial markets when rates have gone up. So I was on a trajectory just to be generating so much passive income. It was pretty good for a few years, and then it's just everything's kind of stuck right now. I mean, a couple of deals are going to be total losses, but then there's just a lot of stuff we gotta survive until we start getting rates come down. So hopefully we crested that hill, and next year or two, some of that will actually, you'd be able to kind of sell or get some distributions on again. But certainly learned a lot about it, and then in the last year or two, just kind of reevaluate, what I want to do. I kind of learned a lot in the last couple of years when rates went up. So yeah, just now I'm kind of focused on stuff that's a little bit more secure, a little bit more conservative, really focused on the underlying debt in deals. I have started doing some private lending myself over the last 2 years, and I kind of like that because it's, I'm holding the note. So, a lot more security for me. So
That's definitely a lot. I mean, you went full speed ahead on everything and kind of got your feet wet with a lot of different avenues. When you started off, how did you get around the people that were doing it? How did you find mentorship? How did you find the right rooms to get into? What that looked like for you?
Yeah, like when I first started, I think I mentioned there wasn't a lot, or I wasn't exposed to a lot. Now there's just a lot more things online. You got to be careful what what you digest and who you associate with. But there's just a lot more resources there. So when I met that syndicator, he kind of had like a local kind of group. A friend of mine, we kind of got hooked up with him at the same time. So that was kind of like, we had a connection. We had talked about investing, then we had a Navy connection. So I kind of trusted him. We kind of started investing and kind of learning, going down this journey together, and just really kind of learning. A lot of it was just, I did join like a couple masterminds. That kind of helps and puts me around the right people. But a lot of it was just kind of really kind of like, this is the way that I'm gonna, get out of my W-2 job and, have more flexibility, and I'd be comfortable doing real estate full time, and have a great life with my family in Hawaii. But so I was really, motivated, and just, worked a lot so I could, sock away money in these different deals, right? Kind of grow my portfolio. And a lot of it was just, I started meeting people that did this stuff. So I had connections to different operators and things. And then a lot of it was just, there's a lot of resources out there, podcasts, books, and things like that. So I would, might drive in to work in the morning. I'd be listening to like real estate tax podcast and real estate investing podcast on my way to the gym, and I'd be listening to it on my run or in the gym. And I don't listen to that stuff nearly as much as I used to, but for a while that was kind of my life, was just, that kind of filled a lot of its space, because I was really kind of in, growth mode. So.
Looking back on your time that you spent in finance, how much has that played a role in your real estate investing?
Yeah, I think it gave me a tremendous foundation. Not that I was really in finance too long. I had a degree in finance, and so I had a lot of kind of educational background and training. And then, my experience when I was with Match Mutual, we're kind of more like insurance focused, but I did have my, securities license. So it gave me a great foundation, especially because, all the basics, just how understanding, like, it trained me, like when I was college, to think about like the time value of money. So that's something that even when I made the, the jump to the military, right? Yeah. I knew I'd be paid okay, but I had good benefits. But having that foundation and having that steady paycheck, I always look like, if I was going to spend something, okay, well, I could spend this money, or like, what could it make for me in the future if I put this money away? So, it just, a lot of it just might frame my way of thinking and decisions, and just everyday daily things, which is, really our results, for a lot of things are just a result of cumulative, daily, weekly activity and decisions. So.
No, I respect you for that, man. I think I blew all the money I made in my 20s, to be honest with you, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, you didn't really got to be, but it pays off so much that if you were disciplined, I think you said you even saved up without BAH to buy something in Hawaii as an investment property. And that just shows how disciplined you were at the time of, everyone else was probably going out, having a good time. It's definitely tough going on, deployments or long missions. Yeah, you're making the money, you're not really spending it on too much, but when you get back, it's easy to go out and drink it away or do something.
Yeah.
But so.
And I did all that stuff. I mean, I had a lot of fun, but but the time I came in the Navy, I kind of had a lot of my fun, even though I still probably had too much when I was in. But it was just kind of you still got to have fun, and like some people are just get overly kind of focused on this very scarcity mindset. You still got to take care of yourself, have fun, and enjoy life. But it's finding that kind of balance, and it's really when you're younger, especially if you don't have family obligations, things like that. That's what kind of having that discipline then is what kind of really set me up. Well, so when I did have a family that, we're kind of, we're kind of set up and in a better place and,
Yeah. So when you started doing, being a realtor and now you're a broker, what was tough for you when you first got going?
Yeah, I mean, at first I was kind of doing it like I said, I was just doing it on the side. So in some ways it's kind of easy because you just talk to people and like, oh, like you're an agent. Yeah, I'll use you. But then some people will say like, oh, well, you're not like full time and stuff like that. So, but I'm the type of person that I was just really hesitant about putting myself out there because I want to be the expert in everything. Even though I knew a lot about real estate, I still, I hadn't had a bunch of transactions under my belt, and I wouldn't consider myself an expert. So that's I think looking back, I'm with this basically the same, we're a different company, the same broker I started with, and it's great. But you don't have like a training program and support. But in some ways, like, maybe kind of hooking up with a team initially, maybe would have been a better jump start. But I think the way I did it, I think the long term, I think it set me up better to really, really learn, the nuts and bolts of and mechanics of like real estate deals and stuff, and not just. I mean, I don't have a transaction coordinator. I don't have, a big team with everybody has different roles. It's kind of me doing all this stuff. And now I've done enough where it's like, that experience I have is invaluable. And I think mostly like my clients kind of, see that, and value it.
So if you could go back and do it again, what would you do different? You said that you were thinking that you had to be the expert to put yourself out there. Would you just talk to more people? What would you do differently if you?
Yeah, I would just realize like, hey, it just doesn't matter. What you'll realize in life, like you probably know more than most people out there. A lot of people in this business just really don't know much, and so. Just honestly, you just got to put yourself out there and do it, right? And it's like, because you're going to be, and if you do that, you'll, it's a learning experience, and you'll be, more successful faster. So you might have a lot more rejections, right? But that's just part of it, and that's going to make you get better and stronger too. So
most definitely. So what's next for you in your real estate venture? What would you like to do? What do you see yourself doing in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. As far as like my agent business, I mean, I think I kind of like where I'm at. We're continuing to grow. I do some property management, so we're kind of growing that because that market I think is very underserved here. We kind of have a kind of independent, kind of high touch, business model, especially for kind of higher end, property. So that's been pretty good for us, and that's really growing. We'll probably double that, business that year, and it's very complementary to what we do in sales. So especially with the type of tenants we have, a lot of these tenants are, temporary renters before they buy. So it complements our sales business. But yeah, just kind of continue to grow that. I don't know. It's just things been busy the last couple of weeks. I think there's a lot of buyers coming back to the market. So just being ready to kind of just, serve these people. A lot of what I did the last couple of years is really kind of setting me up for success now. It's, just even when things were kind of tough and slow, it's, build a website and just plugging away, just some consistent marketing things that weren't really paying off too much then, but I'm starting to see the effects of it now that we're starting to see a lot of buyers come back to the market. So maybe eventually one day have my own brokerage. That was kind of my impetus to getting my broker's license, so I could kind of step away and do that one day. But I don't know. Maybe in a couple of years. My kids are kind of still young, and I kind of like the flexibility of just take them to school every day and work it around my schedule. What I don't want to do is kind of buy me into kind of a more rigid work structure or schedule. So
No, most definitely. What's your favorite part about being in Hawaii? Because it seems like both your wife and you guys went over there and never left.
Yeah, it's just everybody likes the climate, but yeah, it's just a lot of stuff to do. I'm really kind of an outdoors person, so I was in the hiking, and especially water sports like surfing and things like that. So that paddling, surfing, that stuff is kind of really kept me here, and a lot of that stuff's kind of close by, right? So I live about a mile from the beach, so I can go. A lot of times I'll go ride my bike and run on the beach, and go and drop my kids off from school, and then stop off and go for a surf session before I start my day. So it's really hard. It's really hard to beat. Sometimes it's expensive here, and it's like, well, I don't know. But at the end of the day, very appreciative of and how special this place is, and the people here are wonderful, right? So that's a big part of it too. So.
You're a surf instructor, right? You still doing that?
I'm not an instructor. I have done some volunteer work in the past. There's an organization here, Access Surf, that's they have a couple of different programs. People with disabilities. They have a Wounded Warrior program where we take people and kind of like kids. We've taken surfing and Wounded Warriors, and that was always really rewarding. I don't do it as much anymore. It's very hard to kind of get away for like almost a whole day on a weekend, with all the family and work obligations. But that was always really rewarding. It's an organization I did a lot of work for, and especially like even Wounded Warriors and people with PTSD and things like that. We take them out, and what they would say after the fact, it's like the impact that had on them. Just talking to them and getting out in the water with them, right? It's just it's kind of life changing to open those experiences up to them.
That's nice to hear. So, I wanted to ask you one more thing real quick. What would you recommend to someone that may be in the military? It doesn't have to be the Navy. It could be anywhere. They could be stationed anywhere. But, going through all your, you're an expert in the space. You've been doing it for over, 10 years in sales, over 15 years for yourself and investing. What would your advice be to someone that's looking to get started?
Yeah, just learn as much as you can. There's so many resources out there. And yeah, just start, learning, digesting the information, and then just, you gotta, take action. Maybe the first thing you should do is just getting around the right people. People are already doing it, right? So, part of the military, right? The whole thing, like the Navy's big on lessons learned, especially the submarine force. So you get around other people that have already made these mistakes. And that's golden, right? So if they can kind of shorten that journey to success for you, that's huge. So finding the right groups to get in with. I mean, sometimes it might cost you money, right? But like wouldn't you? I mean, this is your life in your future. Sometimes it's worth doing that. And in the past, I was always kind of hesitant to kind of pay money for stuff, but I paid for some kind of masterminds and mentorships. We're in a common paid mastermind ourselves, Mike. So I mean that group is phenomenal, especially for vets. And I was kind of hesitant to join it because I was like, okay, like I've done all this stuff, but it's the best deal going, and the most phenomenal group of people and business people and investors that I'm aware of. And we all have a common bond of military service, and it's just a lot of good, high character people. So type of people I want to associate with.
Absolutely. That's the War Room on Facebook, the War Room Mastermind. You guys are looking to get into something that's going to be worth every dollar. Like Chip said, yeah, it sounds kind of like, up front, it's like, oh, well, I mean, am I going to want to do that? Or, but like at the end of the day, you're going to get out of it, whatever you put in. There's definitely people doing hundreds of units. There's people that have their other own mastermind groups, Flip Hacking. They got Adam, they got Bill, they got James and Tam. There's so many people doing so much, in that group that they're willing to help you. They're willing to talk to you. And it's just about putting yourself in the rooms that people are doing what you want to do. And, you'll learn from them. They have squad calls, and it's worth it if you put yourself into it and you're vulnerable and you just ask. I mean, no one's going to like think less of you. They're going to probably think, wow, this guy's here to learn or this lady's here to learn. And yeah, like you said, it's been great. I've met up with some people in Florida and looking forward to meeting more. So if you guys are interested in that group, definitely check it out, and you'll definitely get some value.
I was at the retreat in San Diego. It's phenomenal, right? It's always good it's harder for me to make a lot of calls because I'm so far away, but especially the people, you put a face to a name and meet them in person. It's just a great group of people. And highly, and just remember, like, I was always hesitant to kind of reach out to people or things like this, but just remember, like, everybody's been where you're at, right? Like, it's a process. Success, whatever success looks like to you, it's a process, and you got to start somewhere. So part of that, the hardest thing is really just kind of taking that, initial step. And for a lot of us, especially for vets, right, really, for the most times, the best thing you can do is just utilize your VA loan. That's usually the best first step.
Yeah.
And I wish I had actually, my biggest regret is not utilizing my VA loan sooner, right? As soon as I moved out of the barracks in 85, I should have known about my VA benefits and used it to buy a place and ideally house hack. I mean, I'm still, in a good spot in life, but like, that's probably, at least a 7-figure mistake, if you take that over my lifetime and the opportunity cost of, investing in other things, right? So learn from other people.
Most definitely. All right, a couple questions. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch? They're looking to buy, sell in Hawaii. They just want to connect with you. Where would you send them to find where you're at?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, but I do have a website, chiplewishomes.com. So you can reach me through there or on social media. So.
Okay, appreciate you sharing that. Just a couple questions about your military. I know you're still in the Navy Reserves right now.
I am, yeah.
Yeah. What's one thing that you can't say camaraderie because everyone says it, right? Like, what's one thing you miss about, being in active duty, doing it full time, minus that? What would you say?
I don't know. Sometimes, like, I really enjoy my freedom and the ability to kind of do what I want more when I want, especially with my time daily. But sometimes it's just kind of nice just to have the structure, and you show up and you do what you're supposed to do, and you go home at the end of the day. You don't really have to worry about it as much, and you get a paycheck.
You get paid. There you go, man. Those 4 days.
Yeah. So it's that. I think a lot of people just don't realize the value of what they have while they're active duty, particularly like somewhere like Hawaii, and it's like I mean, the money's pretty good, especially when you factor in your tax-free allowances, right? So understand what that value is and put it to work for you. Whether you're doing one tour or you're retiring, you take advantage of that. And that's something I eventually did is take those risks and make those investments while you have a secure job. So your active duty pay, that's your safety net. So I mean, you still want to make smart decisions, but take some risk while you have that safety net and set yourself up where you have options after your service, whether it's, one tour or 10, but having options is powerful, right? And that's what money and passive income gives you. It gives you choices, right? That's
Absolutely.
what, I mean, okay, money's fine, but I don't really care about stuff, but it's just the freedom and choices. That's what I value, and to be able to kind of do what I want, with my time and my family and things like that. So.
Oh yeah, seriously. So what's the favorite place you've ever been, minus Hawaii, like that you've maybe gone on a submarine or your time in the Navy? What was your favorite stop?
Yeah, my time in the Navy. I mean, I went to a lot of places on the submarine. I went to Guam a lot, but yeah, I mean, a couple of good port calls, but Hong Kong, pulled in there for a few days, and Singapore. Those are probably two of my top places. And there were ports where we didn't really have to work, so we actually got more time off.
Okay.
But yeah,
Not
those
bad.
are, yeah. And then personally, I don't know. I've been to New Zealand a couple of times, so I think that's I just love that place. It's awesome. So.
And you're all the way out there on the West Coast, man, so all the way on the ocean, so you can, get around to those places a lot easier probably than
it's a little bit easier.
person,
The nice
right?
thing about New Zealand, you don't really have much jet lag from Hawaii because it's
Right.
it's a day ahead and an hour difference. So if I go to the East Coast from here, I'm just a wreck. So
yeah, that's tough. If someone came to Hawaii where you're at, what would you recommend them to do? They come out there for a couple of days. Like, what's a good time to spend out there? Maybe like a week, 10 days. I'm sure the longer the better. But someone coming on vacation, what would you recommend them to do out there for an itinerary?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on kind of what you're into. Some people are kind of just into kind of the more resort lifestyle, or if you want to kind of really kind of see things, obviously, like you said, the longer the better. But I mean, there's quite a few main islands, so it depends on if you want to just kind of focus on one island or kind of island hop. If you're going to focus on one island, I mean, if Oahu, maybe like a week or so. Some of the smaller islands, maybe 5 to 7 days. But if you're going to hop islands, and maybe a couple weeks.
Fair enough. I might see you out there soon, man. I got to get out
man,
there.
Come out.
I got to get out there. No, but I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. Looking forward to staying connected with you. And
thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. And you got anything else before we close up? I'll leave the ball on your court.
No, I don't. Just hopefully that's going to just share my story is kind of helpful, and just kind of, we're all here to, I think hopefully there's some things to learn from it. But one thing is just, if you're a vet, utilize your VA loan and seek out others to kind of help you on your journey. So.
Absolutely, man. If you guys made it this far, we appreciate you listening in. Hopefully you guys like what Chip had to share. I definitely learned a lot myself. Looking forward to stay connected with you, adding value to you and, what you got going on in Hawaii. And hopefully see you out there for some surf lessons sometime soon, man. I don't think I could even stand up if I tried, but I don't know. I might stick with it. Well, I might stick with boogie board, dude. Boogie board, man. Boogie board or something.
Yeah, it sounds good. Man. We can do that too.
All right, sounds good, man. Thanks for joining us in for this episode. Have a great rest of your evening. Take care, guys.